Hello and welcome to the Hey Joe Show. I actually have to adjust my seat. Isn't that weird? It's like Joe
Things
Show.
that you should have taken care of beforehand.
The unedited version of the show. That's right. We're glad you joined us tonight on this special Monday night.
It's a special Monday night. Why is it special? Just
every
because?
time that we get together at the Hey Joe Show on Monday nights, it's special, right?
There you go.
That's what we like to think about it anyhow. So anyhow, it's good to be with you.
Something good has to come out of a Monday. Something.
That's right. Well, you know what's interesting is that our Mondays have been very productive lately.
They have?
Well, mine have been productive.
Yes,
have yours not
they
been
have.
productive?
No, they've been productive. Monday is always Monday. Hey, today was a pretty normal day for a Monday, though.
As far as what?
As far as Mondays are usually Mondays for me. I don't know what it is. Mondays hate me.
Interesting. Mondays love
I didn't
me.
know a day could hate
Tuesdays love me. Wednesdays love me. Thursdays love me. And Fridays, they just don't like me.
Oh, that's weird. Okay.
Well, I figured if we're saying certain days can like me, then I would just pick one, right?
You're not funny, Joe.
Oh, wait. I was trying to be the humor tonight.
Oh,
Anyhow,
no.
it is good to be with you. I'm sorry for the dry humor. The more you get to know me, the more you come to understand and love that I am a dad jokes guy, and I think that's wonderful.
Dad jokes are funny.
I am a dad, and that was a joke. Okay. Anyhow, we're wasting their time.
No, we're
Anyhow,
not.
it's good to be with
I
you,
like
though.
laughing at you. Joe, he's so funny.
It's good to be
We're
with
not
you
funny,
tonight.
Just silly.
Obviously, we want to thank everybody over at the lightnetwork.tv and truth.fm, as we always do. You can check us out there at both places. At truth.fm, the Hey Joe Show has its own channel. It's like satellite radio, I guess. That's right. Truth.fm, you'll get a lot of back episodes. If you haven't checked it out yet, go ahead and do that. So, Aaron, tonight we're going to, I don't know. You know, we
You don't know. That's
no, I
good.
do.
That's always good.
I do, but here's the deal. We're going to, on this show, kind of get back to some of our roots, just so you know. And you and I have talked about this, but we haven't talked about this before the live audience up to this point in time. And when I say get back to our roots, what I mean by that is part of what made the Hey Joe Show all these years was the fact that we dealt with current cultural things,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And the idea behind the Hey Joe Show has always been we're going to deal with the tough subjects. We're going to deal with them in a very plain spoken manner, but we're going to deal with them from a biblical perspective, right? And so what's happened is over time, we try to vary it up because obviously every show from time to time
Every show can't
needs
be
variety.
just Joe and I being super funny and absolutely charming, you know.
I mean, yeah. I mean, like, yeah.
No, that doesn't work
Does
for
that
you, only
work?
me. I'm the valley girl.
Oh. What do I
Anyway,
say?
We decide.
What should I do? Pull my black
Just
socks
look-
up to
just
my
look-
knees
just
and
look- no, please
wear my
don't.
suspenders?
Just
Is that
look
what
pretty.
you need
Just
me to
look
do?
pretty.
Well, I am the eye candy. You are correct about that. So thank you for that.
And moving along.
Anyhow, we are going to get back to the roots of the Hey Joe Show. And so this season we started off with a theme, and I think as far as the theme pursuit, there's more that could have been pursued in that. And so I don't want to leave that hanging. However, we just feel like maybe that our show needs to be what our show is. And that's just it, right?
Sure.
I think
Yes.
that's what we had talked about. So here's the deal. Tonight, we find ourselves in an interesting point in America. A point in America where roughly half of Americans voted one way and half of Americans voted the other way. And even beyond that, we have individuals who have turned to physical violence as a way of communicating their ideologies within America. Now, some people would say, well, Joe, that's always existed in the world. And to some extent, I would say yes, I would agree with that. However, we have individuals now who believe that the way to accomplish being heard is to lash out in anger, to burn buildings, to break windows, to steal TV sets. And then on the other side of that, you have individuals who show up who say, that's it. We're going to meet force with force. And so the individuals who, believe that they can break and steal and riot and loot, well, we've got the other side of that now showing up saying, okay, we'll take you on, and we'll take you on not in an intellectual argument concept or even a discussion, but one that is physical in nature. Now, here's the deal. As you and I think about the times that we live in, there's a lot that could be said, right? And we don't want the Hey Joe Show to ever become political. Now, I will say this. I have no problem dealing with political topics, but I'm going to do so from a biblical perspective.
Yes,
and we're not going to run away from that. But the idea behind this particular episode tonight is this. With all that is going on, the uncertainty of the presidential election, the uncertainty of the coronavirus, although today it was announced that at least one other company has had over a 90% success rate with their trials, right? And so with the coronavirus uncertainties, with do we lock down the economy or not, how many people can show up at Thanksgiving, what about small businesses, and all of that you would think only pertains to adults. But the truth is that what we see causing worry and strain in the lives of adults oftentimes shows up in the lives of children. And it's not because they have the same concerns and worries. It's because they don't understand where the stability went. And let's be real. We talked about a few weeks ago, be careful how you talk about the events pertaining to the election and things along those lines. And that still rings true. But tonight, it's not just be careful how you talk about it. It's the idea of this. In the world that we live in today, with all of the uncertainty, with all of the uprising, that concern and worry and instability is rocking the world of some of our teenagers and some of our children. And that's sad. And there have been studies that have come out in regard to schools being shut down and the significance of when a school is shut down, that it's not just the academics that the child misses. It's the need for social interaction. And that same argument is being made pertaining to, can we have Thanksgiving with more people than just who are in our immediate family at our house? This isn't about turkey, although we love turkey, amen? Can I get an amen on turkey? And it's not just about dressing or stuffing.
Some people would say ham.
Well, some people, grew up out west. I can't help that, right? I promise you this, that I've seen all the pictures and all the drawings. When the Pilgrims sat down, they had turkey, okay? They didn't have steak.
Have you fact-checked that?
I have fact-checked that.
Same.
I saw all the images when I was growing up that I colored, right? They said, for number 1, color it orange. For number 2, color it brown. And guess what? There was no number 3, color it pink. So they had turkey, okay? They had turkey.
Okay,
anyhow,
well, since you said so.
Anyhow, all of that to say this. There's so much going on that it's no wonder there's uncertainty in the lives of our young people. And the idea of individuals who have gone through mental and emotional turmoil due to all the lockdowns, and we're talking kids, and I've seen some of these, the research, and I've read the articles and seen the documentaries of young people who ended up committing suicide during this time period because their connections, the importance of their social interaction was gone. I say the importance was gone, maybe the fulfillment of that importance in their life, right? Now, we can argue all day long, or we can talk all day long about how that should never be, right? Some people would say, well, Joe, it should never be that kids need to be around other kids so much that it rocks them emotionally and mentally where they make such a final decision. And look, I would agree with that, right? I would agree with that, but that doesn't change I guess the difficulty of the world that we live in today. It doesn't change the culture of America to say, well, they shouldn't. Well, the reality is a lot of them do. And so the question tonight is this: as you and I deal with everything we're dealing with, how do we help young people deal with the worries that are in their life? Okay. Now, here's the deal. I've got an article here that I think is quite interesting because it's not just the uncertainties in this life that cause worry and anxiety. This particular article is from medicalexpress.com. Okay? Medicalexpress.com. It's got to be, with a name like that,
Totally
it has
legit.
got to be one of the greatest articles that could have been written with the most prestige. But anyhow,
Absolutely.
somebody's going to chime in and go, "Oh, Medical Express, yeah, they're really good." I don't know if they're really good or not.
Hey, Joe, you need a fact check.
That's right. But here's what I do know. I do know this.
Okay.
This particular article starts off this way: significantly higher numbers of Generation Z boys and girls in this particular study is in England, right?
Okay.
But it says they are dieting to lose weight and are likely to overestimate their own weight. It goes on to say that the Journal of American Medical Association Pediatrics, that JAMA Pediatrics, found that girls who are trying to lose weight are also more likely to experience depressive symptoms than in previous years. And it talks about how just 5 years ago, 42% of 14-year-old girls and boys said they currently were trying to lose weight. Compared to 10 years before that, only 30%. Now, that's still a high number, 1 out of every 3. But now you have almost, right, almost between 1 out of every 3 and 2 out of every 4. That's where we're at in the categories. Almost 1/2, just shy of 1/2. Now, here's the deal. Why are they doing that? That's my question. Why are they doing that? Well, what we do know is this, that a lot of times they're doing that because there's an image that they believe they need to hold up to, and they don't view themselves accurately. So what happens is all the worries and the concerns that go along with the way the young people process everything, that plays into the worry and the anxiety of which they interpret their self-esteem, their image. Thus, it goes back to what I said in the very beginning. It rocks their security, right? Now, we can talk about where security comes from, and which we need to, and we're going to. We can talk about self-esteem and where self-esteem needs to be rooted and grounded, but the reality is that's not always where it is rooted and grounded. But the overall dilemma still kind of hangs there, and that is this. When you think about the way that adults process everything, both from a cultural standpoint, but also from a security standpoint, from a self-esteem standpoint, the idea is this: how is it that we are seeing increasing numbers of worry and anxiety amongst young people? Now, I got something to say.
I was going to say, do you really want to know what I think?
got something to say.
What do you
I think it's because we have moms and dads, grandmas and grandpas, aunts and uncles, potentially elders, deacons, Bible class teachers who have higher levels of worry and anxiety today. And because the adults are not processing this well, it's trickling down to where kids don't process. Because let's be real. Let's not beat around the bush. Kids aren't the only one that look in the mirror and think they don't look like the world tells them to look. Let's be real with that. Teenagers are not the only one that look in the mirror and say, I don't look good. Or, I don't look like the people on TV or the people on the magazines. Now, they'll never say that. But what they'll say and think is this: that this is the standard of what good looking is, and I'm down here, so therefore I've got to change to become good looking.
But I think that a lot of what people are dealing with right now is not, I hate to say superficial, that is superficial. I think the adults are dealing with a lot more, and then that stress and worry and what's another word that I'm looking for? That burden is coming down on that generation. And so for them, there's other ways that they process it as well, as far as channeling it to more of the physical.
Possibly. Well, you know what I think also is this: people are emotional eaters. A lot of times we handle stress with food, and that's why.
Unless you're the opposite and you don't eat.
And that's possible too. But
I guess
most
that is
people,
handling it with food because you're not eating the food.
So you go without it. But I believe, you think back through this coronavirus whole dilemma, And the big joke was that, who's all putting on their weight, right? Who all's putting on their coronavirus weight? And it's not that we handled the uncertainty of the coronavirus with food necessarily in the sense of worry, but it was like, well, food is what we turn to. And I guess some people say, well, it was a lack of activity, but food oftentimes is where people turn to.
Right. So we have a few comments. Daniel says, "Preach it, Joe. Agree with you, man." We got some love here from Caleb Rutherford. He says, "Love you and Aaron." We love you too.
Love you, Caleb.
He says, "Hope all is well." And then Greg says,
by the way, Caleb Rutherford has a wonderful podcast. We're going to be talking more about that on the network, Scattered Abroad.
All right. And then Greg said, "It doesn't matter the generation and the problems of that generation. It's about being accepted."
And that's it. It is about being accepted, Greg. You're correct. But, well, no, I can't say necessarily but. The idea of the coronavirus lockdown, the idea of the dieting, the idea of the uncertainties is oftentimes it rocks the security and the stability. And far too often we tie our security and our stability to what other people think.
Right, to that acceptance.
Right. Do they agree with me? Do they not agree with me? Thus, even from a political standpoint, it tends to feel different when you are around people that agree with you and support your views than when you are not around people that agree with you and view with your views. But also that the acceptance component with the way the body image is dealt with amongst teenagers, that's a big deal too. Now, I've heard some people say, well, Joe, people don't look at it that way. Teenagers don't look at it that way anymore. And I would say this. I'm grateful that we have more and more teenagers perhaps not looking at it that way, but I know it's still a big deal. And some of that's just because of insecurity, right? So, for adults, this whole idea of the dieting and the weight loss and the worry and, all that as an example of the overall picture, some of that's because, you know what, I got to go to the doctor, and maybe the doctor says, hey, you're running the risk of high blood pressure or diabetes or
you did that just for our kids.
I did that for our kids. That's right, because that's how cool I am on the Hey Joe show.
Oh,
you like that joke?
Okay.
You said I'm not funny. That worked.
You're not funny, but okay, moving
that
on.
Worked. Anyhow, the idea sometimes, we do what we do because the doctor says, hey, you better change this or else there's going to be X treatment that you're going to get if you live long enough to get the treatment, right? And there's nothing wrong with wanting to feel better about yourself. But the idea is this: if what you are doing is about externals and other people accepting and thinking about you in a way that really is fulfilling you in a manner, quite honestly, that God should, that Jesus should, then your focus is off. So let's do this. So how can we help young people when it comes to the subject of worry? Well, what does the Bible say about worry? Well, for that, I did turn to a familiar passage. And the reason I turned to a familiar passage is because sometimes we just need to be reminded. We need to be reminded, but we need to talk about this in tangible ways.
And there might be people tuning in that aren't familiar with this.
And they may not.
And so this would be a great time to become familiar with it.
That's right. So here's the deal. When I look at Matthew chapter 6, I got to get all my cords out of the way here and move the iPad over so I can get some preaching done. You ready? I'm ready, congregation. Let's get some preaching done.
Wait a minute. I thought you were going to go back to...
Oh, I am. But you saying I didn't bring in the Bible back in the days of the roots of the Hey Joe show?
No, but we taught.
Are you saying it's not a biblically based show?
We taught through talking, not through...
Gotcha.
I just hit you on the
hit
hand.
Me, and that's on camera.
That's
on camera. I'm glad it's on camera. So anyhow, here's the deal, though. In Matthew chapter 6, the Bible talks about not worrying. And it talks about not worrying from the standpoint of this, that the birds of the air are taken care of, the grass of the field is taken care of, and the question is, well, who takes care of the birds? Who takes care of the grass? Why is it that they have what they need and yet they don't worry? It is the way the Scriptures teach that. And, of course, the answer is this, that God provides for them, right?
Because if you really want an answer, grass can't worry.
Grass can't worry. Birds.
So that's not the
point. Idea of their worrying, I guess, would just be, hey, where's the next berry coming from, right?
True.
I don't know. But I do know this, though. But the main point of that passage, though, is this. Look, God takes care of what you may look at as insignificant. In other words, the rains come, the soil is replenished with nutrition, the berries grow, birds have shelter,
On the flip side, he also takes care of the big things that you think are very important.
That's right. He does, which is what he's getting at there
Right.
in that text. And he says, then when you think about what you need to eat, what will you drink, what clothing will you wear, he makes an interesting statement. He says, that's what the Gentiles are consumed with. Now, you and I that may not make sense to us in our culture today.
Explain it to us, Joe.
Explaining that is this. Matthew chapters 5, 6, and 7 was written to a Jewish audience. It's Jesus speaking the Sermon on the Mount to individuals who were coming out of Judaism. You say, how do I know that? Or they're in Judaism at the moment. And you say, how do you know that? Well, it's because Jesus will refer to standards of righteousness that the scribes and Pharisees, their religious leaders of their day, were placing upon them. And the whole concept of the Sermon on the Mount is, look, that's not what God desires, right? So when he gets into the idea of the Gentiles, what he's really saying is this. That's how people who have no faith in God respond. Now, if it meant that then, why do we think it doesn't mean that today?
People are too far removed. They see it as history that happened long ago or more like a fairy tale.
They do, and here's one other thing, right?
Unless you weren't really asking for my
No, I was, but you're absolutely right. They view the Bible in a kind of a distant concept. That's one thing, right? So we separate it. That was for them, and it was to teach a bigger point. Therefore, I got to worry about what I'm going to eat and drink. And here's the deal. Most of us who are involved with this show, most of us who live in America, most, not all, I'll be real with you, we don't worry what we're going to drink.
No.
You know why? Because even if I was thirsty for tap water, I could get tap water from somewhere. And it's going to be
a big X over it because of COVID, but that's
right. But the idea is this. I mean,
know, I'm just kidding.
I could go into the bathroom and cup my hand under the sink and drink water.
Oh, cup your hand under the sink. I
Yeah.
thought you said cut. I was like, oh.
No, I don't want to cut my hand.
Yeah.
A cup my hand. But
Oh,
here's
about to get
why,
weak.
though. Because in America, we have water treatment facilities. And even though there can be great debate over what's in the water, is it good for me, is it not good for me, what I do know is this. My water that I drink is not dirty brown like some water that comes out of third world countries.
Right.
And individuals who go dip water out of drinking holes that animals are also drinking out of. We live in a very blessed country. So for
Amen,
us...
amen.
For us to say, well, I don't, yeah, Joe, I hear what you're saying, right? But we don't worry what we're going to drink.
Mm-mm.
And oftentimes we don't worry what we're going to wear because we have closets that have more clothes in them than we could ever imagine we would wear.
Whoa,
No.
toe
We're getting
stomping.
real. No, we're getting real.
Toe stomping.
So here's the deal. Is it possible that our prosperity has driven some people to a lack of faith, thus causing an increase in worry? So therefore,
it's completely possible.
So therefore, when we don't have to trust God with what we're going to drink or what we're going to wear or what we're going to eat or the shelter over our head, then maybe we struggle trusting God when it comes to things like unrest in our culture. And when it comes to things like self-esteem, body image. And you look at that and you say, nope, I disagree, Joe. I have that down pat. And I would say this, look, I know some of you have different perspectives, but here's the truth. When was the last time you ever worried about what you were going to drink? Now, here's the root of that, right? The root of that is people who have no faith in God spend all their time worrying about these things. You and I are blessed, but has that being blessed caused us to not place faith and trust in God as much as we need to? Has prosperity weakened us? Now, here's the thing. The question was, how do we help kids? How do we help kids? I'm not suggesting that you go throw all their toys away. First of all, they will hate you for that. Now, maybe you need to get rid of some of their toys. I don't know, right? Some of you are thinking, Joe, I don't know, man. You've not seen my kids' bedroom filled with toys. And I'd say you haven't seen our children's bedroom either, right? And some of you would say, well, Joe, you know what? It's nothing wrong with the fact that we're born into a country that we're blessed. And I would say that's not the point. The point is not should we feel guilty about being born into America. The question is how
I
can
feel
we
pretty blessed
how
myself.
can we help how can we help teenagers and children in the midst of such prosperity still develop a faith in God that will deal with the worry and the anxiety that stems from so many different directions. And the only answer that I know is this: parents, and I'll say teenagers, because I know we have some teenagers that watch this, you must be intentional in the small things, and you must understand. You must understand. All of that could be taken away tomorrow. You say, no, it's not going to happen to me. Well, tell that to the family whose house burned down and they lost everything. Tell that to the families in the state of Tennessee when the tornado came through and it ripped all their home apart, and now they're living in shelters. Or at the time, they were living in shelters, or they were being fed at soup kitchens. The idea is this: sometimes because we are so blessed, we think we will always be blessed. And that's why where the Apostle Paul comes into play in the book of Philippians chapter 4, he says, I've learned to be content in all things, both with many, with wealth, and with not much, with poverty. But at the core of all of that, the reason he says in Philippians chapter 4, verse 13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, is not because he needed to go hit a home run. It's because God was his source. Jesus Christ was his source of contentment.
Right, and Heidi said, yes, our faith is being crippled by having everything we need. You're right. When there is an anxiety problem, etc., we don't rely on God. And Caleb said, worry comes from being like Peter in Matthew 14:30. Peter stepped out of the boat onto the water, but then it says, but when he saw, his eyes came off of Jesus and focused on the problems around, and that's when he began to sink. Just like Peter, we begin to sink when we worry. Example, take our eyes off Jesus, etc. And then he says, sorry for the long comment, but it was a great comment.
No, I thought it was great.
The length is perfect.
I thought it was great. And I guess my deal is this. Oftentimes we think that taking our eyes off of Jesus is because of a storm. I guess what I'm trying to offer to you is this, into consideration, maybe a conversation to be had with the teenagers in your life, maybe your children in your life, is, does it always take a storm for people to take their eyes off of Jesus? Or is it possible, like in the book of Judges, when things were going great, the children of Israel turned their back away from God? It wasn't a storm. It's when things were great. And it wasn't until the storm came that then they looked up to God and they said, send us a deliverer. And God heard their cry, saw their penitent heart, sent a deliverer. Things got better. And what did they do over and over again?
At certain times, can a storm be disguised as things going great, but really?
Yeah, because Satan doesn't have to tear the place up to distract you.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible he can make you so comfortable. And this is what happens oftentimes in affluent families and in affluent societies. We become so comfortable that we believe that we are the ones who took care of everything.
So maybe that's why 2020 has been so huge on people, because they're so used to the fix and everything going just like so.
It's possible.
And then all the things of 2020 came along, and
Doesn't
there was
work.
not a lot that many of us could do about it.
So when it comes down to this, then let's get back to this because we need to wrap it up. We could keep going on and on.
Oh, yeah, we could.
But the idea is this. We live in a culture that it seems to grow worry, the opportunity for worry and anxiety. Young people, at least according to our medicalexpress.com expert website, that there are worries and things that are outside of culture, that especially that are impacting teenagers. This particular article was on dating and weight loss, and I don't think it's just pertaining to teens. There are other subjects, other examples that when it comes to that subject, but the real root of the issue is this: what can we do to help? And I would offer this. Caleb was right. Keep your eyes on Jesus, right? Realize that it's not just the storm that can distract you, but it's also the prosperity that can distract you. But I would also,
that takes your eyes off Jesus.
Anything, and that's why I would get back to this, right? In Matthew chapter 6, the before the whole worry concept there, in Matthew chapter 6, verses 25 and following, he dealt with where your reward is. What reward are you seeking? Are you seeking a reward from man? Or are you, did I spray?
Spit right in my eye. But
I'm sorry. That's why I wear glasses.
You're on a roll. Keep going.
Am I seeking a reward from man, or am I seeking a reward from God? Is my treasure laid up in heaven, or is my treasure being laid up here on this earth? And in all of that, then he segues. He continues on to for this reason I say to you, do not be worried about your life. So why is it then that worry's there? Ultimately, it's this. Because our reward is misplaced. Our reward is not in this world. Our reward is not in whether or not people think we look good. Our reward is not in whether or not we fit the mold. Excuse me. Our reward is not in whether or not we even have peace in this culture. That's not where our stability comes from. And so, parents, you need to talk to your kids about that. But beyond talking to them, you need to demonstrate that. Because it's true. They will hear what you do louder than they will hear what you say. And teenagers, I want you to know this, and I mean this. God loves you more than all of those other people. And God doesn't need you to fit a weight mold for you to be pleasing to him. And he doesn't need you to look a certain way or to listen to certain music to fit into a crowd here and then say, oh, because I'm accepted here, I'll be accepted in heaven. No, sometimes it can absolutely be the opposite of that. I would say this, keep your eyes on the reward that God is giving you through Jesus. Mm-hmm. Allow what he thinks of you to be more important than what this world thinks of you.
Absolutely.
Now, there's more to be said. Do we have any other
we
questions?
Are going...
You tell me. You would always tell me, but I want to leave you.
No,
Okay.
I think I've already
read
mentioned all of the comments.
Very good.
So
now,
at that, we need to
wrap
wrap
it
it up
up
because that's my job to tell you
you're
it's
the
time
producer.
to quit.
So thank you again. Look, we're getting back to this. So I would love to hear your feedback. Do you like the shows that are kind of more culture, dealing with current culture, kind of very plain spoken like that? Because that's what we're bringing. And so if you write me back and say, Joe, I just don't like those kind of shows, I would say this, please forgive us.
And while we're on
as
it,
we
since
move
we're
forward.
talking about it, we also have heard everybody, and we will next season be moving back to our longtime night of Sunday nights. We tried Monday nights this season thinking it would be a better fit, and some experiments don't go over as well as you think they're going to.
That's all right. But that's the cool
all
thing
right.
about the show.
So we will be back to Sundays.
I'm looking forward to it because it seems like Sunday nights after services, that's kind of been the Hey Joe Show's night. So thank you again for tuning in.
New.
Check us out at KyoPublications.org. Check out our YouTube channel. Please, if you haven't already gone there, do so. And then make sure that you subscribe to our podcast. You can look that up at thelightnetwork.tv. And you can see all your different podcast links there, but you can subscribe to it so it'll be sent right to your device.
Yippee!
Anything else?
That's it. Have
all
a good
right.
night.
That is all we have. Thanks for tuning in tonight.
Please hang up and try again.
You did. I don't know what you